If by chance you are dreaming right now, wake up! Welcome to Horror Nights! Welcome to Horror Nights. We're back. It's been a minute. We took a little time. We had cons every other week. Decided to take a little break from being on here and come back when we had all guests lined up, and we're meeting with the different the different people that I like to interview. I like to interview directors, authors, and some of my most important and favorite people, the artists. And that's who I got on today. I got on with me Terrence. I met him. He was a vendor at my latest con that I went to out in Creature Feature in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Good old Gettysburg. And I have to say, it was a pleasure running in because I saw you the first night when I went on Friday, and I actually came back on Saturday to buy some. So that means that you stuck out. But second of all, you had some really just unique pieces out there. Let me ask you, how long you been doing art for?
So photography specifically, which is what you saw there at the show, I've been doing action figure photography since 2010. Prior to that, I was in the indie film scene. I had gone to film school back in 2004 and was working in the Detroit area in indie film, when I could. Still am technically, but that was my main artistic focus at that time. And then around 2010, I felt like I hadn't done anything in indie film, and I was just kind of a failure. And I was trying to find something else to fill that void. And I looked around and saw that I had a huge action figure collection, and I had this skill set of lighting and using camera and storytelling and things like that. I was like, okay, well, I'll combine them, but I don't have the patience for stop motion, so I'll just do a single. And that led to action figure photography being a thing that I do now.
And I get what you mean about the stop motion, because that's like doing what you're doing with the figure, but then it's like on steroids because it's just so time consuming getting every little frame and
Right.
being able to move it, snap it. Even with today's modern technology of phones and such, it's still painstakingly takes to just keep it going and move it. But it is cool, and I give kudos to the people that can and do have the time. Stop motion, I mean, to me was like one of the early forms of animation that I saw, even in like horror, as experimental being used,
Mm-hmm.
clay animation and such, using
Yeah.
as a form of FX.
Yeah, absolutely. You spend a whole day to get like a second and a half of footage because you're just moving it like a little tiny bit each time and then snapping a picture and everything. I definitely can't do it, but yeah, the people that can, like, that's amazing. Like all of the feature films shot that way still blows my mind, even when they do it nowadays. And then like the technology's gotten so good with the way they do it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh yeah,
But
thinking about
I
going
can't do
back
it.
like a movie like George and the Giant Peach or something. It's just like
Oh yeah,
there's a time that went in to make those films because they didn't have the computers that they have today. They just must have just,
right.
like I said, years to make films. But let's show the audience. This is one of the one of your artwork. This is from Hellraiser. Um, obviously, you like I said, you find the right image, you put the lighting in. I'm guessing you bring lighting in, or you use photography lights.
Yeah. So everything I do is in camera. So any lighting or smoke or fire or anything like that is there when I take the picture, and all of my images come straight off the camera. There's no Photoshop or anything. So yeah, I have a bunch of small lights that I use. My camera's pretty small and basic, just a Canon, whatever. And Yeah, so I just keep everything simple, but try and make it look complicated.
Oh yeah, I mean this was the one that I actually bought. I bought this one, and I honestly, I saw it in the smaller size. I was gonna get it when I came back on day two. The smaller size was gone, so I got the larger one on the larger print. And honestly, I just thought this was just a very unique photo. Having Gumby in any of these just makes it hilarious to me, and everybody's facial expression. But knowing that, like I said, that this was all set up. This isn't a Photoshop montage. This isn't an AI photo. This is you have this scene set up somewhere in your facilities, and you're sitting there snapping away photos of it.
Yeah, I mean, my studio is basically a card table that I pull out and set up, and then everything else I set up that day for the shoot. So like the backgrounds and anything I have for the ground, lighting and effects, and all of it's just set up temporarily for that day. So I don't even have the advantage of having like stuff just always in its place, and I just need to like reach up and adjust it or something. And yeah, the Gumby ones especially have been a fun series that I've worked on. Um, like that all began because I did one photo where it was just Gumby curled up in a fetal position in front of a stack of books that were books that shouldn't have been on the Gumby show, because in the Gumby show he could walk into a book and he'd enter the world of that book. And the idea was, what if he got on the wrong bookshelf? And so that was like the first photo. And then I was like, hey, I could just do one for each of these books and it'd be even more fun. And so I've just been working on a series of those from different like fucked up books, including the Bible. But I also have the Rivers. If the first one I did was a satanic themed one. It wasn't
Yeah,
until
I'm gonna try
years
to
later.
pull that one up too right now. I think this is the
Yeah,
one.
it was
And this
years
one
later
was,
when I was like,
I'll
oh
be
yeah.
honest with you, this one was pulling at me too because it's very unique.
If I can ask real fast, what inspired you to get into photography like this? Like, what got you into it?
So like in high school, I did photography in the yearbook. So that was like my first playing around with a camera kind of experience. But even as like a little kid, there was one day where I was looking at some comic book covers and I had Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. And the cover of that is just a stack of bodies and then the Punisher standing on top. And it's like all different superheroes and he's killed them all. Hence the title. But I was like, hey, that's like an easy setup. That'd be cool to like stack all of my action figures into a pile and put the Punisher on top. And then I was like, I'll take a picture of it to commemorate this idea that I had. And then like the picture was super blurry and it looked like shit and like it's terrible. But so I forgot about the idea for a long, long time. And then, like I said, in like 2010, I was feeling like a failure from filmmaking, and I had all of these filmmaking skills, but I had nothing I could apply them to. But I had this big action figure collection because I've always collected action figures. And I was like, what if I do that thing I did one time? And so I started looking through some comic book covers again. I found some that I thought would be simple and easy to do. And I set them up and took some pictures. And like, hey, this is kind of fun. And so it was just sort of like a little bit of a hobby thing like that for a while. I was just recreating comic book covers. And eventually I wanted to do my own compositions, my own original ideas and stuff. And that's when I started getting into like the Gumby series that we were just talking about, or the Skeleton series that I've been working on most recently. And I've just kind of branched out from there.
No, I like it. This was the first gum. I think this. I'm guessing if he ran into the Necromonicon, how would it be? And you got like, I
Yes.
love it how because you have like the movie from like the Evil Dead version of it. You got Antoine Svendi's like Satanic Bible in there, and just the name alone, even though like most of it is just theist, atheist stuff, it scares people. And then you got the other Necromonicon, which a lot of people are afraid of. They don't even want to touch those doors. And you got them all in this, and then you got poor Gumby there just finding his way in the wrong shelf, like you said. And I love that. Like I almost wish it was a movie like, oh, like Gumby goes to hell. Let's see how this would turn out.
Right. It's one of those photos where I do wish I had the patience for stop motion, because Gumby obviously is from that world, and it would be awesome to do like my own Gumby fan film that brings those photos to life. But for now, I I settle for trying to tell a story within one frame.
Oh, and it works. I mean, like I said, they both are, like you said, those two right there. Just and just again, I'll show this one. Like you said, if Gumby had entered, went into the Bible, what would it look like? What would it happen? And you got like Jesus like walking away.
Yeah,
Um,
Jesus is selling them out. He's got the 30 pieces of silver there,
he turned to
passing
he
them off.
turned to Judas, and you got Gumby up on the cross. It was like whatever, and even worse is Gumby's alone. He doesn't even have his horse. He doesn't have his friend.
Yeah, yeah. His other friends are just sort of sitting there watching, like as if they were Mary
Oh.
Magdalene and the apostles.
Nothing we can do here.
Right.
And
His
I'm
will
just
be
sorry. But again, like very cool pieces. And I know what you mean. Like I said, I have a big, huge action collector too. I start off with wrestling figures. I got tons of wrestling figures, and I always just try like set them up in the ring, take little photos. I too don't have the patience. I've tried. I've gotten maybe 30 seconds videos with stop animation. I can get about 30 seconds, but after that, I have to either I just can't, because it's just too much of keeping that camera still.
Yeah, keeping the camera still and trying to move the figure just slightly, but not any other piece of it, and like keeping track of what you have moved and where.
Where did I move that from? Where am I
Yeah,
going next? You need to know. I mean, basically, it's like directing a movie. You need to have a list of your shots and what you're doing every shot. It's not even
exactly.
like you can't even say like, okay, now move your arm. It's like, okay, I'm going to move your arm in increments. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, so I started with that though, and then I got into horror collection as well in the wonderful world of NECA, and their figures are
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, absolutely. They do a lot of the heavy lifting for my photos, for making the photos look good, because the figures just look so good already. It's great.
Yeah, a lot of them come with a really nice gloss, a nice shine. The characters are really, really detailed, and
Mhm.
to be honest, the accessories are amazing too. A lot of them come with, and if you're fans of these individual films, you can make. I've seen people making dioramas and such. For a little while now, like in groups where they'll buy a NECA figure, buy a few customized backgrounds, make a Camp Crystal Lake setting, or make something, and that's just how they're displaying them. Not even for photography, just for display purposes. I got into it, like I said, and I probably in about, I would say, the pandemic. Once the pandemic ended and Targets opened up, I started being able to go there and shop, and I started to
Yeah.
notice these figures were being out there, and of course there was nobody else in the store, so I had time to look at them. And I noticed there was a lot of these horror ones, so I started grabbing a few of them here and there, and then I started going online and seeing there was a lot more. And so I started going after those ultimate collections, and then I went back
Mhm.
to a few of the classics that I wanted. A couple of the more rare ones, like Michael from the Lost Boys, and David, and some of the older series ones I went after. And those ones I don't open, but all the other ones I ended up opening them. And if there was something that, like for instance, I didn't want to open, I would just end up buying two of them. Because I have a set of stuff that I want to go around and get signed. Like, so for
Oh yeah.
instance, over the weekend we had, we had the guy from Reanimator there, and Reanimator has a NECA figure, so of course
Yeah.
I wanted to, bring that and get it signed. And that's kind of my thing now with the cons, is trying to get these individual NECA figures from whatever movie signed by whoever played that character. You can do it with the Jasons and such. You can do it with, the different ones. And that's been kind of the fun challenge now. But still, even just collecting them, because every day there's exclusive ones. They're not even, some of them are very hard to come by. I had a real hard time getting the last, like, Art the Clowns.
Yeah. It's fun doing the action figure photography at conventions where they have the celebrities there who represent, the characters that I've taken pictures of, because sometimes I do have them sign the photos I've done. And that's always a cool experience, because they're always excited to see it, because they're like, oh, I've never seen a thing like this before. I'm like, well, they're out there, but here's my version. Please sign it. And yeah,
Yes.
like Jeffrey Combs was somebody that I definitely almost went up to have signed, because I've done a reanimator photo. And I was like, it'd be cool to have him sign that, but I ended up missing my chances to go. But yeah, that would have he was super cool. Lloyd was there. He was cool. I've done a Toxie photo too. I could have
Oh,
had him
nice.
sign. And then Quinn from Trick or Treat. I was going to have him sign my Sam one, but it never made it
Yes.
away from the table.
Yeah, but you know what? The weekend went by fast, and I can imagine you guys at the tables just getting busy because there was a lot of guests. I mean, there was a good amount of guests, but if you could run through the guests, then everybody just rushed the vendors. And the guest lines were really nice, where they didn't actually take your whole Friday or take your whole Saturday. If you got in there, I mean, I went in VIP and I was done with my signings by, by 6:30, quarter of 7, and I was able just to go around and start, vendoring and looking at the different figures and looking at the different arts and such. I always love. I was talking to another artist, about it, just because as you know, every artist has kind of a different style of how they draw a character, and I finally realized why a lot of them. Well, a lot of them, they say they do comedy or parody of these because they can get around the copyrights.
Right.
Have you ever run into any copyright issues with the photography, or just because you own the figure, you kind of can just get away with that?
So I have a store on Etsy, and Etsy is the only place I've run into copyright issues. And usually it's through a person in, management, or for the person represented by that figure. Like, for example, I have an Elvira photo. I put that up in my Etsy store, and then Etsy sent me a notice saying that Elvira's people had asked it to be taken down. So I had to take that one down. I did another one that was based on a Hello Kitty character, and like the people that own Hello Kitty had that one taken down. So I've only run into it as an issue through that medium, but like at conventions and stuff,
No
when
one's gonna bother you.
yeah, no, like obviously none of the attendees have ever had a problem. And then, like I said, when I have met celebrities and shown them my photos, like so far everybody has been like super excited and they thought it was cool and stuff. So I haven't run into any issues yet.
And
So
maybe where
fingers
you're not
crossed on that.
exclusive on like one franchise, like you're known for Friday the 13th stuff, and all you push is Friday the 13th. It's like I mean, here's Stranger Things, right? So it's like
Right.
you got something from a little bit of everywhere, and it's not even just one type of figure. If I'm correct, those aren't NECA figures, right?
Those are both McFarlane.
Yeah. So I mean, you're using different various ones. McFarlane's another great toy line. Mezco too. I think they make amazing toys as
Oh yeah.
well. I did get their Terrifier, and that one actually blew the NECA ones out of the water. I'll say, with the amount of accessories, the cloth, the clothing, the lights,
Oh yeah.
everything.
Those Mezco
Uh,
112 figures are so good. I've got a couple in the shelf behind me there, but they're so expensive.
I mean, I was a little starstruck though over the weekend. I ran into I think it was the last toy shop, and they had a
Mhm.
lot of custom figures, and a lot of their custom figures, while they were in the like 180 range, were beautiful.
Oh yeah, I had my eye on Edward Scissorhands. They did one time, but I
Yeah.
haven't been able to get it yet. So
No, I'm
hopefully they'll
still
keep
looking at the
making them.
I'm looking at the Lost Boys ones myself, and I'm just like, I've seen them twice now, back to back cons in Jersey, and then 'cause I went to Monster, and then this one, I'm just like, okay, if I see them a third time, I have to buy them. That's my thing. That's my men. Um, but no, so I mean, you started to do this art, and you started to, I mean, obviously, you like you said, you started with comic books and kind of taking the covers and reenacting certain scenes and reenacting certain things. When did you get to a point that you're like, hey, I can make this into a little bit of a profit? I want this.
So when I started doing the photography, like I said, it was just for me for a while. But I was posting the pictures online, and then like, my friends were commenting like, hey, that's cool, blah, 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 blah. But at the time, I was working on a web series online called Suburban Heroes, and we were doing conventions to promote that. We had DVDs of the series that we were selling and stuff. And eventually I was like, well, what if I just printed off some like cheap prints of these pictures that I've done, and I take them to a show and just have them off to the side of the table, and people can kind of flip through them and just gauge if there's any interest in that while I'm already vending for Suburban Heroes. And so I did that, and like people took notice, and they seemed to like them and everything. And so as time went by and Suburban Heroes became less of a thing for a variety of reasons, my booth setup just started becoming like my photography stuff instead, and it just sort of transitioned over to that. Um, and for a very long time, I wasn't really doing well because I couldn't figure out what kind of shows I should be doing. Like my immediate thought was comic conventions. Like that makes sense. That's where it's like all the action figures are. I'm doing a lot of superhero related stuff anyway at that time. But nobody cared at comic conventions. It's weird. Like you would think toy collectors who are already there would be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And they were like, that's cool, but nobody wanted to take anything home. um, so I was doing those and failing. And then I even did like a toy show. I was like, well, toy collectors would be like, oh, we're seeing this in a different way. Maybe they would like it a lot. And again, you get comments, but not sales.
Yeah.
Eventually, as my art kind of changed and I started focusing more on the dark art, horror movies, Skeletons Gumby, all of that sort of stuff, I think those things themselves were more interesting than what I was doing. And then at that same time, I started doing more shows that were like Creature Feature Weekend, like horror related conventions or dark art shows and stuff like that. And that's when I
Oh
started.
yeah, because I mean, to be honest with you, us horror fans, we love alternate versions of our favorite characters.
Oh yeah.
We love from everything down to people's art renditions of characters, right down to like I said, the parody of it. You know, we get in love with these characters, and we want imagery. We enjoy these photography, photos and such. And I think I don't know what the comic scene is like. I've never really got into that. When I was younger, I liked comic books and such, but I never went to like any of the conventions straight for comics but I have been to from the last year, I've been to dozens of horror conventions, and I have to say, like I said, I think that fan base loves that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter if they're big prints, little prints, postcards. If it's a cool image, a sticker, even people buy it.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like the horror community is much more almost like accepting of just anything, because like horror was so underserved for a long time as far as like merchandise
oh
and
yeah.
like fan service and things of that nature. And we're sort of in a golden age of that where it's mainstream but still like cool in a close small community. And so I think that's
Well,
been
the
beneficial.
merchandising has become incredible
Yeah.
because of the toy lines, and it draws back. And then you also have games like Fortnite and other such that brings in these horror characters as like playable characters. So horror's almost everywhere you go now, to
Yeah.
some degree, and it has become mainstream. Where like I grew up in the '90s and 2000s, and horror wasn't really that cool. It's like, oh, you like horror, you like blood and guts, but it was the
Right.
VHS market that we would all talk about. It wasn't going to movie premieres like today. Today everybody lines up for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 or Scream 7, and it makes money. Back then it didn't. These movies
Or even
all failed.
Yeah, or even the Terrifier films, like, in the
The
early
first two, the
2000s,
first
nobody
one,
would have
yeah,
known about that.
no, nothing. And now that's one of the most, characters I think used the most out there. I saw a lot of art.
Yeah.
um, but here's one of your skeletons, and I think those are really cool because they just skeletons look really cool in photography, but the way you have them being able to pose and move and such, I can see why that people are sparking an interest in that as well. Because the horror just doesn't have to be the movies we watch. Horror's also there's a dark side to it where there is this morbid curiosity, and you have these different things with whether it be skull. I've seen people do dead art with like butterflies and such at cons and sell that or bone art. You
Yeah,
know,
and
um,
I've done a lot of oddities shows, where like their main focus is taxidermy and stuff that kind of branches off from that. But they do have artists there as well, and that's something that I find that I do well at. People in that community appreciate, action figure photos just as much as the horror community, and it's pretty cool. And part of
Yeah,
that is because of the skeleton series, that kind of ties into it all.
no, definitely. I think, part of it with the horror people and everything, and just like you're saying, in that kind of crowd setting, is that a lot of us do these things, right? A lot of, like I said, I have a figure collection. I've definitely used my cameras and such to film them. But how many people actually, replicate it or do it multiple times or make all these scenes? And I think, as why people are in awe and that at it, they're also like, well, this is really cool. This person actually, did it. They did it not once, but they're continuing to do it. And they're doing something maybe even I wish I could have done. And it's really cool to see because there is a gap between an idea and actually getting it out there. Sometimes it never
Yeah.
happens,
Oh,
especially with
I know all
creativity.
about that. Yeah.
Creative process is the weirdest thing, and sometimes it can get all sorts of bumps or go even in totally different directions. You may start off doing figure photography and end up doing something totally different.
Yeah. Or you start out doing filmmaking and end up doing action figure photography.
That too. Luckily, if you know how to use cameras, lighting, and everything, you have a universal skill set.
Yeah.
um,
I like to think so. So I try and make it work.
well, I mean, like I said, again, they look, the photos look professional. It's not like they don't. Like I said, when I first saw it, I didn't even realize it was figures. I thought, I didn't even know what to think. So I kind of had to ask because at first I saw the Gumbies. And the Gumbies to me, which I didn't know if they were 3D rendered or whatnot. And then I started to see the NECA figures, and I could pick them up because I have some of them. So I'm like, oh wow, that's one of the Jasons I have, or that's one of this ones I have. And I was like, oh, he's doing figure art, but it was like I said, you're not doing it. I've seen people do figure art where they take the picture of it and then they transport the whole thing into Photoshop. They remove the figure, and then they
Yeah.
just work on a back setting, and they work on it's almost like a green screen photo. You're not doing that though. Again, like you said, you're bringing everything. All the magic is happening right in front of you. Any effect, anything flare, anything you do, you have to have almost like I said, like practical effect.
Yeah, I mean it's very much filmmaking for a single shot, with practical effects and stuff. And I I've had a learning curve with doing like the effects type stuff too, because some of them I have fireworks going off and stuff to get the photo just right. And I learned very quick that you don't do that inside. And then even when you do it outside, sometimes you set your table on fire accidentally. So that's always been fun. And I have one photo that I did, which is inspired by the film Carrie. And it's got Carrie White with the backdrop on fire when she's on the stage. And the backdrop I made out of tinsel. And you shouldn't set tinsel on fire inside your house because it catches really really quick, and B, it smells awful for
Oh,
days. Um,
it's like that
so
burning plastic smell.
yes, yeah, it's not good. And then there's other times I use fake fog. I have fog that's an aerosol in a can, and then I have a little tiny fogger that I use too. And sometimes that sets off the smoke alarm, which was fine when I lived in a house by myself, but now I'm in an apartment and I have to be way more careful about not setting that thing off.
That's the
Yeah,
carry for the
there's the
people
carry
they're
one.
talking. And
Yeah.
that's a creative use of tinsel because I said, I mean, I have only seen people use tinsel at Christmas time, or some people have used it for like wrestling events, maybe. But you use it in a way that it looks like the blood that was coming down, but it also looks like the fire that's coming up. It has multi-purpose in that picture.
Yeah, I was trying to replicate the sparkly backdrop that they had on the stage in the film, and tinsel just seemed like the easiest thing to do. I just didn't realize it caught fire so quick.
This was another one that I came across that I thought was really kind of cool too. Is I'm you got the kind of lighting up there, and it looks like it's almost magically coming up, and Chucky's putting his soul into somebody else or coming back. Charles Lee Ray one more time.
Right. He wants the power.
It's
Um,
like Howie Dewey Dumbledore, give me the strength.
yeah, that's one where I cheated. I reused that pentagram that I had made for the Gumby one. And so that's just the same effect with the same set, used in a different way.
Yeah, because if you look at the two, you kind of have that one going this way, and it's got more like fog kind of rising, where this
Yeah,
looks almost like either like fiery imprint or some kind of sigil on fire.
exactly. And that's what I was going for. So
And just like
I'm,
I
I'm
said, just really good use and just good use of both, like you said, the means you have, but also just finding creative ways, to do that. As there now, as you've gotten into it, how do you find kind of inspiration to come across your scenes now when you want to make things that you just kind of like this would go really good together? Like you come across a figure or
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is inspired just by the figure itself. Like I'll find a figure, I'm like, oh, this figure is cool. I need to do something with it. I need to photograph it in some way. I have to come up with an idea to show off the figure. And then other times, I've been watching a movie and I was like, oh, this is a cool scene. Hey, wait, they did do a figure for that. I could do something like that. And so I tried, like the Chucky one, I tried to do something that is inspired by, scenes in the movie. So they kind of come from different places like that. And then the skeleton ones were all just sort of, those ones are actually like really personal ones based on stuff I was going through for the last year or so. And so each one's inspired by that, but utilizing the skeletons to represent the people and the emotions and stuff, because a skeleton is sort of a blank. It's not a specific gender or color or anything. It's just this
it's just
blank.
a skeleton, or
Right.
two skeletons.
Anybody can be that skeleton because we're all just skeletons underneath. So I find
It's
those
almost
fun to
just
work with.
a plain shell, and you can kind of take it
Yeah,
as you want it with those.
exactly.
I like that though. Because I guess similar to movie making and such, you want every image to kind of tell a story as much as it can without anything having to move, like you said. And a lot of the images do. They tell great stories. You could write short fan fiction about each one of your images. I could probably write a story about it or come up with some sort of reason why. Which is great in a creative sense too, even for creative writers, because you get these like an image of Gumby on the cross, for instance. That's not something that normally comes across your palette of thinking. But you could easily write a million stories about how and why and when and what was it like, and like you said, what would happen if he just showed up here or there. So as a creative person, I find it just almost mind-blowing, some of them, because some of them, yes, are recreations from film, but others, like you said, just kind of inspired just because it looks cool or it would look cool or it would fit the theme. It might not have necessarily been a scene from the movie, but if it could be an extra scene in a movie, this would be it.
Yeah, and I've done a series of musician-based ones as well. And with those, I try to either base it on, a specific song. Like I've done a bunch of Alice Cooper and Eddie Maiden ones, and each one of those is based on a different song by those musicians. Um, or I try and base it on their live show, like what their concerts are like. So I've done ones for Kiss and Ghost, and so I try and like not necessarily recreate the exact live show, but it just sort of like what their show is like in my head, or what I would want it to be. I'd really like to do a Guar one now that they've got figures. I just haven't done it
Oh
yet.
yes, Trick or Treat Studios put out the Gua figures, didn't they?
Yeah. I ordered that set the day that it finally went up for pre-order, and so I got all 5 figures, and then the bonus sludge barrel that has the piece of Odorous in it, so I can build Odorous. So I just
Oh,
need,
awesome.
yeah, I just need some time and a really good idea, but I'm excited to
And
do a
a
Guar one.
lot of green slime.
Green and red.
Yes. I haven't been to Guar since I don't know, 2010ish or so. But I'm still cleaning out slime from places I didn't even know existed. Okay, it was one of the most livest experiences I've ever been to, and it was cool because I got to see them last year, not perform, but they were just all in character. Or whoever was left was in character, and they were doing photos and signing autographs and such. At a con I was at, Horicon, and they were Trick or Treat Studios was out there, so they were showing the figures off, and they had their sets out for sale and such. But it's cool to see that, to see the music world, because there's a lot of metal artists that do touch horror, and now I'm seeing like the horror cons of the horror world bringing them in or bringing them back. Like Bruce Dickinson was in, just that Monster Mania. That was a big deal.
Yeah, I heard
Um,
about that. I'm sad I missed it.
yeah, I didn't get to the table, but I did get a photo op with him, which was really cool. Yeah, the the tickets in that just went nuts. Between that and the Stranger Things kid that they announced, it just the sale, just like everything that went in the weekend, just sold out once they started announcing those two. I'm
Mm.
lucky I had everything pre-ordered beforehand before I knew all the guests, but I had to kind of pick and choose because the lines were out the door. I'm like, well, I'll meet this one, I can VIP this one, and then photo ops for the rest. But no, a lot of the musicians now do also have NECA figures or action figures in some sense, and or even the or even like the icons, like the Misfits icon, they have that as a
Yeah,
NECA figure.
yeah, and I've done a Misfits one. And then even like years ago, they did uh, two of the members as like 12-inch dolls, and I think it was Doyle and Jerry. And I have those, so I've played with those a lot. I wish they'd done the whole band, which would have been cooler, but uh, yeah, Misfits are fun too. There's a lot of stuff you can do that's abstract and just sort of mixes in with horror. Rob
Yep.
Zombie is another one that would be great for that.
Oh yeah, you could do almost unlimited things with that because he's got horror movie. You could put characters from. You could have him sitting there with like next to Captain Spaulding. You could have him doing all sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You could even have him directing the film if you want.
Right.
But here's another one I found that was really cool. You got you mix the wrestling world with the horror world, but I remember the WrestleMania, so you got Jake the Snake and Alice Cooper there.
And what's
You
fun
know.
about that one is I have a print of it, and I have both of them have signed it, and it's one of my most prized like autograph things. Um,
And I mean, like I said, the lighting is great on that. It looks like it's in a stadium.
well, I
Um,
had to do that because I had no background with like a whole bunch of people, like a real audience. So I'm like, how do you fake that? Oh, that's right. If you were on the mat, it would just be the bright lights. So I can just cheat
yep.
and just have bright lights.
Oh,
And
that's
so
how
that
they do
worked
it
really
anyway. That's
well.
why you don't see empty seats. You
Right.
just see black background. You don't know if people are sitting there or not. But it gives that really nice cinematic effect. And in the figure and in the photo, it looks legit. I would think I'm watching the WrestleMania they were at. Like if I was browsing, like, oh wow, you got a WrestleMania photo, cool. Um, because again, the figures today, I mean, besides if you don't go looking for the joints, a lot of them look very, very real, especially when you have them photographed and the lighting and everything is on point.
Yeah,
You know.
like I said, the figures themselves do a lot of heavy lifting for making it look good, and I am very grateful for the advances in plastic technology that have made them so good nowadays.
Oh yeah, the articulation is amazing, and
Mhm.
like I said, even to the point of if the companies aren't making, you got people also buying like 3D printers and homemaking stuff, or making accessories, or making, you know, other parts of sets that never existed.
Yeah, I'm excited about the whole 3D printing thing. I still haven't really dived into it to get stuff like props and things for my photography, but like it's a whole new world where you can just make anything and have it available, and all it needs is like maybe a little sanding and a little bit of paint to really sell it. And so yeah, I'm
Oh
excited about
yeah,
that.
no, like I
um,
mean, like again to mention the last toy stop there, they had these like little figures. I ended up having I bought 2 feet for from the audition movie movie, and it was just like Two Little Feet with the audition backing. But they had other ones. They had like the Leprechaun, said Lucky Charms across it. They even had like the little vial from Breaking Bad. Different like key little items that would be small enough that could fit in a little package, but you could tell they were, handmade. I mean, it says bootlegged as fuck toys on the bottom, so it gives you the idea. But again, it's where creativity is now taking us with the technology that we can possess as little people. We don't have to be a business of mass proportions to create these things. You could buy a 3D printer now for fairly cheap, I think. And if you know how to operate it, you know how to hand paint, you know how to even do modeling, for figures and stuff,
Mhm.
then you create these things. And like I said, a lot of them are pretty unique and very cool and fun little things to get signed, because a lot of the stuff for that people make is for movies that don't have any merch or aren't even from this country, like Audition. There's very limited stuff of what's produced here for that movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about conventions and like little indie artists, because we all have the things that excite us that are like kind of obscure, that feels like we're the only people that know about it. And then we go to a convention if we're the artist and we show it off, and then we find the other people that are like, oh yeah, I remember that movie that's only on VHS even now that I saw when I was in third grade. And I remember that scene with that weird little monster, or that, that thing. And
Yeah,
like, it's cool.
you meet almost a collective of people that have things that maybe you only thought you remembered, like you said, because a lot of the times, back in the day, especially when we were kids, a lot of movies were just on TV. They would just be on,
Right?
whatever, HBO, whatever, and you just, you might have wanted to see Indiana Jones at 10, but there was like two other movies because you woke up at 6. So you're just killing time, but you end up watching these horror films or fever dream films that you just don't remember for another 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, there were so many. I've always been a night owl, so I would stay up, on Friday and Saturday nights and like just channel surf and come across whatever, like TCM would show some sort of weird movie, like some monster movie, and like, oh, what the hell
Oh
is this?
yeah.
Like, I missed the opening. I don't know the title, and you just have to like hold it in the back of your head until like someday you come across it again.
Well, you hope
And
you find you hope that you like seen somebody known in the movie that was a famous actor, so you could kind of go back and
right,
see what were they in. But we didn't
yeah,
have access to computers back then. We couldn't just like, oh, pull out my phone and Google this. You didn't have
yeah,
no answers really. You'd have to wait later and be like, hey, you remember that guy that was in that movie? He did another movie that went like this and this and this, and you'd be trying to explain, and people like, I never seen it. I don't know what you're talking about
yeah. Yeah, once
because
IMDb came along, I spent so much time on that site just trying to find stuff.
well, it's the greatest way to find kind of, you see an actor's face, you're like, I didn't even know, is that person?
Hmm.
Because, you'll see actors that have been, hadn't acted for 20 years in a movie. And it's like, well, they were that famous horror actor, or they were in that movie, that, was such a cult classic, and now they're somebody else or somebody different. So you go back kind of see, and then you realize they've been in a bunch of films, or they've been in independent films, or this and that.
Right.
No, I love the film world, but I also love all that it kind of all the little spouts off of it. The art, like I said, and music, sound, all of that too as well. It's another form of art, I think. People that do like soundtracking and kind of do the sound techniques for films or stuff. But right now, I've been really into kind of like I said, the visuals and just just seeing what people can do. That creative A to B spot where I have an idea. Now I got to go the next step and seeing what that next step looks like, whether it is a film, whether it is an art project, whether it's a poster, whatever it might be. And
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest step. After you get that rough done or whatever you got out there, then you can always go back and perfect it. You can edit. I mean, look at Star Wars. The guy went back and remastered his whole movie collection, basically. But he got those out there when he did. If he waited till the 2000s and the late 90s to do his movies, it would have never taken off. He had to put them out as he did, when they came. He couldn't do
Yeah.
it and wait for the perfect time. And that's sometimes with movies and art too. You can always upgrade them and update them as you go.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that, it always takes me back to reading Lloyd Kaufman's book, How I Learned About Filmmaking Through the Toxic Avenger. And like the main message of the book is like, just go out and fucking do it, just
Yes.
make your damn movie. And yeah, it's like you said, once it's done, then you can tweak it, or just make a new one and take those lessons that you learned from that first one and make it better.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I
continue
was
on.
even talking to another independent film and director that was there, and he had a couple of films for sale, and one of them had the same title twice.
Hmm.
And I just, happened to be like, "Oh, is this a sequel? Is this?" And he was like, "No, this was like the first version we did." And then when we got more budget and whatever, we decided to reshoot it and redo it. This would be the second version of it, and this would be the version I prefer people to watch. But they want to see the inspiration and so forth, then go back to the first. And I mean, that's the same with a lot of things. If you look at Terrifier, it started off as an anthology, first a short, and then an anthology.
Yeah, Evil
And
Dead,
then from that,
same thing.
it came into a movie and more and more and more. And sometimes that's what you just got to kind of take baby steps. You might not have the budget to do your first run, but you got your character down, you got your storyline down, everything. But everything is working. But maybe the effects, you know that an extra 10 grand will get you bloodier effects.
Yeah,
But you do, you get the first one out with a little bit less is more, and then you strive to make it better or work to make the next one or even redo that one. And just seeing that progression can be amazing too, just how different people in different fields kind of learn, and how they've adapted and grown from their first piece to their next piece. I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure you've seen that in yourself, your progress
absolutely.
from.
Yeah, because like I said, the first action figure photo I ever took was, I was in third, fourth, fifth grade or whatever, and I still have the actual photo. But like I said, it's out of focus and it looks terrible. So like comparing that to something I've done, this year is great. But even just going back to when I started like doing this on purpose, like those first photos that were just inspired by comic book covers compared to the stuff I do now, like there's a big difference. And like it's really cool to look back at that and being able to see that. But it's also like extremely embarrassing when like some of those are still like in my book for like at conventions and stuff, and like people flip through and like they just kind of go through those ones quicker. I'm like, I get it. They're older.
You know what? I buy the Blu-ray extra editions of videos just to see the director's early short films that come attached sometimes, because I
Oh
like
yeah,
to see the early stuff. The stuff on that you'll be like, oh my god, I can't believe they made that, because they also the people that made Jurassic Park or something, and it blows your mind, because it's just like, well, every director, every person started somewhere, and it wasn't always at the top.
yeah.
Nobody very rarely comes in as the best at their game on their first try.
And even if they did, it's only the first try that was seen publicly. Like they still have stuff they're not
Yes.
showing you that was the practice.
And that's kind of the stuff I like to look, because that's where I see people grow. That's where I can see actors grow, directors grow, artists grow, everything. Even like I said, as a podcast, even Vic can tell you our podcasts that we've done over the years. They've all gone up. It wasn't where it started. Software's changed. Um, Presentation has changed. Even just how comfortable being on air has changed. In the beginning, it was kind of nerve-wracking. Oh my god, people listen to me. Oh my god, I'm talking to a stranger. Oh my god, who is it? Like, am I being judged? And then it gets to the point where, well, it's my show. I'm having fun. I'm
Yeah.
talking and meeting new people. You know, um, but it's all just, I think, a big learning process too. That a lot of people don't look at it that way, and they kind of just want to see that end result. But I think if you take it as a learning process, you can learn so much more and have fun with it, because you're learning different techniques, or learning from different people as you go. I could learn from you a technique on lighting, for instance. I could learn from somebody else a technique on, you know, how to make, water scenes. I can learn from everybody that if I'm open to learning. Because everybody's got their individual lessons or can teach something, because they're doing something different than I'm not doing.
Right. Absolutely. Like I used to run two different film festivals, and that was kind of the cool thing about doing them. I would get submissions of films, and then there'd be 100 or 200 films, short films that I sit through, and there's such a wide variety of like ideas and how, like, even when there's a bunch of themes of the same type of movie, the different ways people approach it and the different ways people approach like even a specific effect and how they do a head smash versus how somebody else does a head smash and all of that sort of stuff, like the variety of all of it is super cool. And so when you're in positions where you get to like witness that or see it or seek it out intentionally, like, yeah, absolutely, you learn so much. Like, even it can be entertainment or it can be lessons that you apply to the stuff that you're using, that you're making or whatever. And yeah, I love all that stuff too.
No, definitely. I mean, it kind of made me think of, like one of my favorite films is an anthology film, ABCs of Death. I
Mm,
don't know if you've seen it, but it has,
yeah,
different directors. Everybody got a kind of letter, and everybody kind of makes death about that letter. But it shows each and every director's kind of individual form, and every movie is a little bit different, even though it's the kind of the same, one term of death. And I love seeing that kind of stuff. Even festivals where they're all the same genre of horror, or they're supposed to be. You can see, like you said, how can people make, I've seen, people take like a mermaid and turn it into a horror movie. I've seen,
right.
folklores get turned into horror movies. So to see what people do and what their version of these, creatures look like. If I say, draw a unicorn, but you got to draw it scary, there's going to be 20 or 30 different variations of what this creature is going to look like.
Yeah, if you like just taking a unicorn, you can have the movie Death of a Unicorn, or you can have something like Carousel, and just everybody takes it a different way. It's great.
Exactly, and I like that. I think about horror more so than other genres. I mean, I do watch a few other genres, but you don't really see that as much. I mean, horror action is pretty straightforward for me for films. Comedy is where it kind of interacts, because comedy and horror go together very well, because you have
Yes.
obviously a lot of horror comedies,
Hmm.
and then you have comedies that have other aspects of other genres within it as well. There's some drama comedies, love comedies, and that reminds me kind of horror, because horror is all over the place too. You have different levels between extreme French movies all the way down to something silly or funny. Um,
It's a very versatile genre, and I think that's why it's so like so popular, and the audience is so uh, connected to it because it can represent just everything.
yeah, there's probably something in there for everyone. Like if you like J
Mhm.
horror, then you can come here. If you like cult classics, you can come here. If you like you know trauma videos, you can come here. It really doesn't matter. But like the movie Toxic Avenger, I haven't probably seen it in 30 years, and they were showing it the other night.
Mhm.
Um, and to me, watching it now, I was just like, first of all, I didn't realize how wild that movie actually was. As a kid
Yeah.
watching it, probably on HBO or taking it home, I never realized just how crazy it was.
Yeah.
And two, it's just like they put this out, they took a risk. This wasn't part of any major marketing scheme. It wasn't following any other genres. It wasn't trying to like be another slasher, another Freddy, Freddy or Jason or anything. They're like, we're just gonna put this out. It's gonna be wild. It's gonna be wacky. It's gonna be freaking absurd. But it's gonna be a classic someday, and that's what it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
It's fun to look back at like what Trauma did before Toxic Avenger, like all the like weird little sex comedies, and then Toxic Avenger comes along, and then they realize that they can actually be fully expressive and do all this like really weird and fucked up shit, and like just go
movies like
all in.
Poultrygeist and Rabid
Yes.
Grannies out there and shit.
Yeah.
I call it early
Absolutely.
Netflix. When Netflix first dropped, the first, like I swear, like when they got onto the online portion of it in the very beginning, you could go to their library online via a computer, and
Hmm.
almost all the original like videos they picked up must have been Trauma, because I remember watching like Rabid Grannies and such right from Netflix in the beginning and just being like, what am I watching? And wow, this is cool. We can watch this now like this. I don't have to have a DVD. Um,
But we all still love physical media.
oh, I mean, I have a whole collection of it. And regardless of regardless if something comes out digitally, that's only for the times I'm too lazy to get up and put in the Blu-ray.
Right.
Every time else, I'm grabbing the Blu-ray or something because it's either better quality than what the TV has, or it has some kind of extra, or it's a different version, or I just I like holding it. I like owning it.
Yeah, they look so good on a shelf.
They do. They really do, and it's funny because sometimes I'll buy something and it'll just literally sit on the shelf because I wanted just the collector's whatever it came in, and the little insert that it has, and the little book, and I collect a lot of the Arrow films too, and they do a
Mhm.
great job with their packaging, in my opinion. And so they will just sit on the shelf there until I either find to watch them, or sometimes, like I said, I also have a lot of B movies that need a B player. So those I a lot of them I can't find streaming.
Right.
So I that's where I kind of like, okay, well, I definitely need this for physical media, and that's how I kind of justify to keep it going, because a lot of the films you can't find streaming if they're not from this country, or at least
Yeah,
the versions that you want.
and then of course, the streaming services lose rights to films and they disappear off their format, or they
Yep.
take them down for other reasons. But physical, you always have it.
There is, and that's why, I mean, even at the con there was another vendor there. I want to say it's like VHST or something, and they have a straight up. They were taking all these VHS tapes that we'd see, in our favorite video store, and just put them straight to DVD.
I
And they're
got
still
two
in their
DVDs from
VHS.
them.
Yes, I did too. And the greatest thing about them is they're basically still in VHS format. A lot of them still have the trailers and stuff attached.
Mhm.
And a lot of those videos never actually got put to DVD or put
Right.
into anything. They just stayed as VHS and forgotten about. Maybe they made it to Tubi, some of them, but not a lot of them.
Yeah, one of the ones I picked up was a movie called Spontaneous Combustion, which was directed by Toby Hooper. I didn't
Oh,
know
wow.
Toby Hooper did a movie called Spontaneous Combustion. I was so excited.
Now I'm just learning that too, and that's the thing. You got to remember VHSs, and what got distributed was the big titles, the titles that made money. The
Yeah.
littler movies back then didn't really get distribution or get pushed as much. Like you said, who would ever know the two? I mean, I wouldn't know Toby Hooper did anything but Texas Chainsaw.
Right. And Poltergeist, of course.
Well, yeah, but but in
Yeah,
today's
just
world,
the
that's
big
what they
titles.
push. Right now, today, mostly they only push Texas. It's everything Texas Chainsaw, Texas Chainsaw. If somebody
Yeah.
came on the scene right now and never watched any movies, they would probably only know Toby Hooper from Texas.
Right.
A lot of people mention that he did Poltergeist, unless you get into that kind of fandom. But right now, with the anniversaries and everything, Texas Chainsaw's kind of been everywhere. Um, but that's the other thing. We were talking the licenses. Sometimes, not even, and that's the thing with the figures as well. Like there was a
Mhm.
ban on Jason figures for a while because the Friday the 13th license got kind of revoked, and they couldn't
Yeah.
even make the figures. They had to stop production on figures. The video game got taken down. Like everything just went to shit with that for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why there's a lot of figures out there, or things that you would expect would have figures, and then they don't. And you're like, well, why is that? And it's got to be a licensing thing. Like everything always comes back to licensing, it feels like.
And I think in the movie scene, these licenses move pretty fast. 1 minute this one owns it, then that owns it. Like right now,
Yeah.
A24 owns Texas Chainsaw, so they're gonna do whatever they're gonna want with that, for good or for bad. And it's just like,
Yeah.
well, they own it now until the next person picks up the rights.
Yeah, it's weird how that works out. So hopefully they do something cool with it.
They could go and say, you know what, let's open the boards, and all of a sudden we get an extra, 30 figures coming out this year because they decide to make the whole crew, and we get a Franklin figure, and this one and that one. We get a party van.
I want a Franklin figure now.
I want a Franklin figure, but nobody ever makes the victims, and that's what makes me mad.
No.
Okay, we get the kills, but I got no one to kill.
I mean, we've only gotten, like, other than Leatherface, we've gotten one of now I'm drawing a blank on his name, but like only one of the other killers from part 2, and I think that's about it.
Oh, for the Texas line, we got no. I mean, you got the Hitchhiker figure, and then you got Chop Top,
Yeah, Chop Top was who I was thinking of there. The Bill Moseley. It's
the
like,
Bill Moseley.
but
But even in
I want
other
the cook.
franchises, the only final girl we get is always Laurie Strode, and
Yeah,
she's always overpowered in her figure. She's not like hobbling or anything, except that one hospital one they made.
yeah.
But every other one is like, well, I need someone like, give me a victim, give me something to prop with, because I think that's the hardest part for me is like I can make great scenes, but there's no bodies, there's nothing. You got to
I
use
have
spare hands and stuff.
I actually have a box of figures that's labeled normies, and it's just regular people to use as like victims or background and stuff like that. And a lot of them are just like Marvel Legends figures, but they're just like regular people in suits. They're
Yep.
technically characters in comics, but like they're just people in suits or a skirt or whatever.
But I would
So
think
yeah.
there would be a market for actual victims, like selling victim packs, or because
Oh
NECA
yeah,
has a known, sell a decapitated hand, sell a half severed head.
they do those
These would
accessory
take off.
packs, but they never have people in them. So that would
No,
be
no
an
people
untapped market.
would be, and would help everybody kind of make even more cooler things. I think because
Yeah.
you'll look at people's photos and stuff, and you'll be like, well, that's great they killed John Cena, but I want to see what one of the characters from the movie or something.
Yeah, I mean, like with that Chucky one that I did, the victim on the floor is from Reanimator because it's
Yeah,
just
no,
a regular guy in a
it looks
suit.
like a doctor though.
Yeah,
Herbert West and that looked like a doctor, and it looks legit. And you
yeah.
can
I
hide it
just had to
right, but
turn his head so you can't see his face very well.
one reanimator to another, he was bringing him back.
Oh, it does
That's
work on
actually
that level.
now thinking of it, that's really awesome for
Yeah,
because they were both reanimators in their own way.
I wish I could say I did that on purpose.
But now you have done it, so it's half on purpose.
Yeah, it's out there now.
Um, that's great though. We are just about out of time, but I just want to touch a little few other things. Where I've been pulling them from. You have a website. Is that where I know you said you have Etsy, but is your website where people can mostly get your prints?
Yes, my prints are available through my website, which just is acfigphotog.square.site. I know it's not a good website name, but like I don't have the money to have a domain name. But I am on Etsy too. It's easier to find that way. Those are both
No,
options.
and I'll put
But
all the links in the about
yeah,
section
the
too, so
best
people
is
can just
always just
click.
to find me at a convention or an art show, because then I can,
And then you can sit and talk.
yeah, then I can tell you how I did it and why.
And that's the important thing. Not so much the how, because I mean, sometimes the how is too, but I also like to see the why. Like, what inspired you to make that? What inspired you? Like, I had questions like just coming in about where Gumby came from, but now that you mentioned, him walking into different books and it makes sense now. I never even
Yeah.
thought of that. What happens if he walked into the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw, like I said, the Necromonicon one. I was like, that's to me, But now it makes even more sense the story of why.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your con schedule like? Like I said, I've seen you out in Scranton. Do you try to go that way? Do you go all over the continental U.S.?
I'm based in Detroit, so most of the stuff I do is in the Michigan area. I try to get down to Ohio and Pennsylvania when I can. It just sort of depends on cost of the show. I haven't really broken into Indiana yet, or Illinois, so I'm starting to try and branch out as much as I can. But mostly in the Detroit, Michigan, northern Ohio region.
Well, if you ever come up to the Northeast, we do have a lot of great cons up here in Massachusetts. Maine started doing cons as well. And even Connecticut. Connecticut isn't that. I mean, well, it's about an hour away from Pennsylvania,
Yeah, I know there's some good
but
like trade
Jersey
shows in
rather.
Jersey.
The Jersey shows are nice.
Yeah.
I've been kind of hitting those and slowly getting more into them as well. Going a little bit. I keep going a little bit further and further out. Like I'm supposed to go to Texas Frightmare weekend this year, and was told is one of the biggest ones out there. And there's a few others I have my eye on that aren't in my area. And I'm just like, okay, let's see what's out there. And it's
for
funny,
sure.
you can travel like however many hours, and sometimes you see the same vendors that you see near your house, and they're not even from this area or that area. They're from like someplace totally different.
Oh yeah, it's sort of like the old days of the traveling circus or something, where you'll just keep coming across the same performers or the same vendors wherever you go. And it's kind of cool because it's like a little convention family, and we all kind of know which ones do well, and so those are the ones we all appear at, and it's
I like
fun.
it so because I can see what they have the first time and then know how much money I really need the second time, because
Right, and
I've
then the
never
third
come
time when you
prepared
buy it.
enough. Yeah, a third time when I buy it, because I never come prepared the first time. I never have enough. I have enough for the photos and the autos, but I never actually bring enough for the vendors.
Yeah.
There's always one piece that comes at the very end that I'll see that I'm like, damn, I need an extra couple of hundred now. um, but that's the fun of it. I mean, like I said, the collecting is just as much as fun as the talking about and going out there and meeting people. It is a really great experience. If that's your thing is horror, I feel cons is probably like it's like a home for any
Hmm.
horror fan, because you walk in there, you do feel like family, not just with the people that are there, but also with the vendors. The guests are very, they're amazing as well. They make you feel like you're at home as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of them will just talk to you about horror. They'll talk to you about their film. They don't act pretentious. They don't act better than. They just act like normal people. Like I talked to Jeffrey Combs for a good 15 minutes on Friday, and he talked to me like a normal person would talk to me. We were talking about Stream and how Stream was partly filmed in Scranton. I'm not Scranton, Gettysburg, and just different things. I talked to him about his older films and such, and it's just always a great time to do such things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you for coming on and sharing with us all this stuff. And
Thank
and
you.
again, hope to see you at the next one out there. Because it's definitely, now that I got your website too, which means I can order prints from there, because there is a bunch of figure stuff or different stuff that would look really good in the bare spaces of my basement. Now that I look at it, the Gumby one's already getting framed this week. I will be honest,
Awesome.
but thank you very much. And thank you everybody at home for coming out and taking the time to check out, some of the people that I'm going to be bringing on this week. There'll be vendors and such, of people that were at the con selling stuff, and the things that they do that involve horror that also, you know makes money for them, but us as fans collect. I like I said, I met a bunch of people, different people that were making weaponry, people that were making stickers, T-shirts, all sorts of things, and it's what it's all about. So thank you everybody for staying tuned, and as always, stay spooky. We're out.